Okay, now.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, D, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time I want you to sing with me.
Okay, now.
Free mint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There's 100 pennies and $1. A light is a metaphor for knowledge.
I can learn about George Washington in each of these books without having someone to tell me who he is.
I don't have a kid that would make the college level seem very relevant. So in college, though, you take all that information and you evaluate it. So instead of, like, David was learning about George Washington in a lot of books, in college he's going to determine what he thinks about George Washington. What kind of person was George Washington according to David? After reading all of those things, he draws a conclusion. In high school, you're really just reporting. You're gathering all this information and you're trying to combine the information into one, but the evaluation comes in when you can really draw a unique and arguable conclusion. You're making a claim that is your own. Okay, that takes a little more thought. This is critical thinking. You're not drawing the same conclusion that everyone else in the class would have drawn if they read the same sources. Everyone might read the same sources, and when we get to this level, everyone really should have their own unique idea, their own take, their own claim. That is harder. That is the goal. A few classes into my major of English education here at Southeastern, I had to write an essay for a class, and I'd already been doing a lot of essays, and I always got A's or B's, and I was good at writing. I didn't know a lot of these tools that I'm giving you, but I always got good grades on my essays. But for this one teacher who I hadn't had before until this point, I got my paper back and I made a D, and I was mortified, and I didn't know where I went wrong. I didn't understand what it was that he expected. I didn't know why this paper was so much worse than all the other papers. I didn't know why he was grading this way. I didn't know what to do to not fail this class ultimately. And so in the next class, I found out that a lot of people had made really bad grades, and he gave out this chart that I had never really seen at all before. And what it was actually was similar to that round chart you saw in the beginning of this video for Bloom's Taxonomy. And he basically explained this that you're looking at right now, that to get an A, you've got to demonstrate evaluation. To get a B, demonstrate at least synthesis. Okay, so I really, in my paper, was only demonstrating application. Okay, that is not enough for a college level paper. Alright, now thinking back, I hope that I had at least some analysis, but it just wasn't enough. But regardless, I got a D on that paper, and I had to figure out what I was expected to do. And I had a really hard time understanding that, because he just gave us this piece of paper, and I didn't really understand what these were. I certainly didn't understand how to apply them in a paper. So, what I'm giving you is the opportunity to know exactly what you're expected to do. But you also need to realize that the expectations translate into grades. So if you understand this and you know how to apply this to a paper, you are going to do amazingly well in college. If you don't grasp this, you're going to struggle knowing exactly why you're earning the grades that you're earning. But across the board, this is the general goal. This is what teachers are looking for. They're looking for critical thinking. Evaluation is the key. You want to make A's, you get that. Synthesis is mandatory. So many times students say, well, I don't need to use sources. I can just talk about this. I have plenty to say. You're not credible. I'm sorry. You're a college student, and I don't really know that you know that much about what you're talking about. You need to find some credible sources to back you up. You need to be open-minded enough to look at other people's ideas and put those together to have a deeper understanding before you make an evaluation. Okay, so this is important. This is how you're going to be graded from this point on. The following is going to be an example of some kids talking about the trash man. If you were to write a paper using only knowledge, then you're going to have a lot different outcome for your conclusion than if you work through the steps. So the kids are going to work through the steps of Bloom's taxonomy to come to a different conclusion. At each stage, they would have a different conclusion. Ultimately, they need to get through all of them before making a decision.
He stinks!
Now,
He takes the trash away. If I put my trash outside, it takes it away. If you didn't take the trash, my house will stink.
Without the trash man, the whole community would suffer.
He is very pumped.
another common example of going through Bloom's taxonomy would be when you go to the doctor. Think about the way that a doctor visit progresses and the questions that he asks you. He is working through each level of Bloom's taxonomy before making a diagnosis, which is the evaluation. When you go to the doctor, the very first thing they ask is simply, what's wrong? This is the first step to them gaining a basic knowledge. Now,
What's wrong today? I'm sick.
then he needs to understand what's wrong, so he asks what your symptoms are.
Where your system? My tummy hurts. And your head hurts. And my tummy hurts or your head hurts? My head hurts.
Now the doctor needs to know how the symptoms apply to the patient's everyday life.
How does it affect you at school? I'm too sick to go to school.
Next, the doctor should think of other important questions to analyze.
Now,
How do you take Tylenol? Yes.
The doctor can then synthesize the information he has gathered and figure out a diagnosis.
now.
I think you have a mobile Google. Say oh.
He evaluates the diagnosis and can determine the right treatment.
For that.
Do it again.
What do I do for that? You mean shot.
We'll go into more detail in another video about how to make sure that you have each part of Bloom's taxonomy represented in a paper, but this will give you an idea. But what you mainly need to realize is that writing is thinking, and you need to demonstrate critical thinking skills in college. So every paper you write should demonstrate every level of Bloom's taxonomy.